Hello and welcome back to another video in the complete web dev series. In this video what we're going to do is I should explain. In this chapter we are building a content management system using object-oriented programming. And I know that it feels like up until this point we're doing so much extra coding. But you're going to start to see the tide shift really quickly, where all of a sudden now we can create pages and forms and logic really quickly, and it's really clean and streamlined. So what we're going to do is just continue on with our registration form and see how far we get with that in this video. So let me switch over to my screen here, and let's go ahead and create a new branch for this video. So this is video 21. So I'm going to go ahead and push that and set the upstream to origin v21. Okay, once I've done that, we're good to go, and we're going to be working in the auth controller. We're going to be working in the register view, and then also the model for the users model. Okay, so go ahead and open up Auth Controller, and let's go ahead and do a little bit of work here in the is post. So what we need to be able to do is when they let me go ahead and go there. It's the auth /register, and we will do, well, we don't have to put new here, but what we want to be able to do is when they fill out this form, we need to take the first name and assign it to the property in the user object. Now, we created the new user object, which is right here. Later we're going to be using the same form to edit the user objects, and we'll go through that when that happens. But for now, let's go ahead and look at this. So we did our dump and die, which shows our values, and what we can do is we could do something like this, where we say user, and then we're going to set fname equal to this request get fname, and that will get it and sanitize it from the form. And we can do that for each thing in our deal, but this is kind of repetitive, so we're going to go ahead and do this in a loop. Because what's really neat is what we've done is we've named the fields the same as they're named on the object, which will help us with this. So what we can do here is we'll just say fields is equal to, and we'll set up an array, and now we can put in our array the fname, lname, email, let's do ACL, let's do password, and confirm. Now all we have to do is we can loop through, so for each fields as field, then we can simply say user, and then we're going to use the curly brackets with the field name here, and that will set the property as a from a variable name. So the first time this goes through is going to be fname, the next time it goes through is going to be lname, and then we're just going to set that equal to this request get, and then we're going to pass in the field there. So then we don't have to do these one at a time like this. We could just do this. The next thing that we're going to do is after this for each, we're going to want to go ahead and save this user. So we can actually use our save method just like this. So we're looping through the user, and then we're going to do user save. So this should put this in the database. So let's see what happens here. I'm going to fill this out. And this won't be 100% correct yet. We're just going to make sure that this works. So we'll hit save. Okay, and we do have an error, and it's looking for the get last insert ID. So we have an error in our model class. So I probably typed something weird there, and it was on line 83, I believe. And so the save did happen. We know that because it got to this line right here. and it's looking for the get last insert ID. So let's figure out what I did wrong there. So we should have a method in here to get that. Oh, it's just last insert ID. So there's no get on that. So let's go ahead and fix that real quick in the model. Oops. Let's grab all that there. That's the actual name of it. So I'm gonna hit save there, and we'll go back and let's just look in the database now. We'll go to our users table, and in fact we do have this user object. So let's slow down just a little bit and recognize that the first name, last name, email, password, and ACL came from our form submission and saved it to the database. Now blocked, we didn't have to add that because that was set to 0 by default, because if you look at our users model, we put blocked equal to 0 by default. So we didn't change that. So that got inserted as a 0 when we ran this save function. Now, there's a couple things that we need to do to clean this up. First and foremost, we don't have, let's look at the thing here and just kind of look at what's wrong with this. There's a couple things wrong here. The first thing wrong is we don't have our created at and updated at populated. So we can do that very easily, and we'll do that in a second. We also are storing the password as a plain text password, and we need to go ahead and hash that password so that it's not just plain text like that. So those two things need to happen as we're saving the data. And then we also need to do a bunch of validation to make sure we're not getting duplicates, to make sure that they filled out the information correctly. So let's just go ahead and start at the beginning. Let's do our created at and updated at. Now, if you remember in our code, in our model object, we created a timestamps function. And we also have a before save hook. So what we can do is go to our users model. So go ahead and go there. And let's just overwrite that parent thing by doing the parent method by doing public function before save. Now this is going to happen every time we use our save method. So if you look back in the model, if you look at the save method right here, every time this happens, it calls the this before save, which is really good because what this will allow us to do now is we can just call this timestamps, and we can say this timestamps just like this. So now let's go back and let's go to the database here, and we're gonna be deleting these and adding these a few times. I'm gonna delete that user, and let's go back and fill out the form again. First of all, let me make sure I saved this. Okay, so this before save should happen, and it should run that timestamps, and we should get, I'm not even going to fill that out because it doesn't matter right now. I hit save. Let's go back here and okay, so now we added this user, and now you can see that the created at and updated at are set to the UTC time just like we expect them to be. Okay, so now we have the timestamps that are automatically going to be updated. Now if we were updating this user, which let's go ahead and test that real quick. So instead of having /new, that user that I just created has an ID of 2. So what I should be able to do is put this 2 in here and hit enter. Okay, we have a problem here, and it says that there's a call to undefined method get errors. So we got to fix that now. So let's go back here and let's find out why that would be. So why would it all of a sudden have a problem with this get errors? Well, that's probably because something must be wrong with this. It should be going into here. Let's just dump and die our user at this point. Okay, so there is a user, so it is getting the user. Get errors. Let's look at our model here, and we should have a get errors. Oh, okay, so this, I know what's wrong. This right here is a standard class. And so it is not an object. It is not a user object from our model. So the problem is here is I bet you that our find first, our find by ID method is not setting the database up correctly. So let's go look at that. So let's find there's the save, here's the find by ID. And this is running the find first. So what we need to be able to do, this should be setting the database to true. I think it's because we need to use, instead of self, we probably need to use static here on this find by ID. So let me see if that works. It does not. Okay. Yeah, excuse the rain and the thunder. It is storming outside. So this is cool. This is give us a the ability to really dive in to figure out what's going on here. So let's look at that getDB method. Set fetch class. Get called class. So let's do this. Let's right here, let's do our D&D and let's dump our database here. Let's just see if we can figure out so that stuff's protected. Let's do get db get fetch type. I don't know that that's actually a function that we created. It's not. Crap. Let's see here. We have fetch type. Just to debug this, I am going to add a public function get fetch type right here, just so that I can return this fetch type here, and it's 8. So let's go and look at PDO fetch type. Fetch class. So that's 8. So let's just also here in our, so we're doing some good debugging now. Let's and I have a temptation to stop and not show you this process, but I don't think that's helpful. I want to actually show you what's going on here. So not here, that's not where I want that. Instead, let's go to the model, and right here what we're going to do is let's do dump and die, and we're going to do PDO fetch underscore class, and we're going to find out what that is. And what I'm going to do here is do a comma and a false, so we should get both of these dumps right here. Okay, so they're both an integer of 8, so it is a fetch. We are telling it to do the fetch class, so that part is correct. The next part that could be wrong with this is that we're asking it to also let's see, on the getDB we're also setting the class, so we need to check that as well. So let's go to the database, and the class is also protected. So let's do a getter here, public function get class, and then we'll just return this class. And so let's figure out what that is now. So we're setting it here, so we should be able now to get class like that. And let's see what we have. So it's app model users. That looks correct. So why is this not working then? This seems like it should be working. Everything's correct here. Let me just double check my reference here. Give me 1 second. Yeah, I don't know why this isn't working. This is bizarre. Yeah, it's doing it as a standard class instead of populating this as a user, and I don't understand. This should be a user. We know that the set fetch type is correct. Let's see, find first. Let's go and just double check the query method and see if something's wrong there. Oh, I think I know. I don't think we actually, okay. Okay, yes. We did not actually use that. Well, no, it's passing in as the fetch type. One second, again, I'm going to double check one thing in my reference here. Oh, okay. I do know what the problem is, and that's because this fetch all, it doesn't work to just tell it that we need to the fetch type. We have to tell it the class that it's going to be using. So we're actually going to have to put this in an if statement, and we're going to do if this fetch type is equal to PDO fetch class. Then what we're going to do is we're going to say this results is equal to this statement fetch all, and then we have to pass in this fetch type, and then the second one is actually this class. So we weren't, our method did not tell it what class it was before. And then we're going to put this in an else. So what's going to happen here is if our fetch type is set to this same as this fetch class, then we need to run the function a little bit different. We need to tell it to run this second parameter here to set the class. So that should solve the problem. If I refresh this now, and yes, now this is an object that has the app model users as the object type instead of a standard PHP class. And then now it has set all of these to the values that they are in the database. So if I get rid of that dump and die now in our auth controller, what's really cool about this is now our form right here is actually filled out from the ID of the user in the database. So if you look at that ID, it's 2, and we're finding that user by the ID. And then if we set this to new, then it's just blank because it's not fetching an ID from the database. And if I hit that from 2, it fills it in. So now we can use this form to actually update users or create new users. So let's go ahead now and knock out a few more things. I think the best thing to do at this point is to go ahead and we're going to want to fix the password so that it is hashed. So I think the best place to do that is probably in what we're going to do is go ahead and go to the users model, and in this before save, after the timestamps, let's do an if statement. And what we're going to do is say if this is new, which is a method that we have here, then what we're going to do is say this password. Okay, so this password is equal to password hash, and then we're going to tell it the value that it's going to take is this password. So it's going to take this plain text password and pass it into this password hash, and then we're going to set it, the property, back to that hashed password. And to do that, we're going to use, for the second one here, we're going to use password underscore default. Okay, so now if this is new, one second, I gotta pause the video. Sorry, I just got a text that I've got to answer. All right, I'm back. I had to run out in the rain, so I'm a little bit wet now, but we're back. Excuse me. So we were working on this password hash here. We're going to use this password hash function. Now this is built into PHP, so we're not doing anything. This is just like what we did in the procedural one. But for the value, we're passing in this password. So that will be set here when we loop through here, and we say for each user password, and that's going to get this request get password from the form. So that will be a plain text password we're passing into here, and then we're telling it to use the password default setting for this password hash function. And then it's going to set this password equal to this hash. So that's only going to happen if it's a new user. We'll handle if it's an updated user in a little bit. So let's go ahead now. I'm going to go back to my database. I'm going to delete my user. And now let's go ahead and fill this out. So Curtis Parham, my role is admin, and then my password, I'm going to put in password here. And we'll hit save. And now if I go, we go here and we browse. Okay, so now you can see that we have our timestamp set, we have our first and last name and our email address, and we have the hashed password now, and our ACL was set to admin. So perfect. This is actually a usable user that I can use and log in with now. We're going to do some more work though, and some of that work revolves around let me close that. It revolves around us needing to do form validation to make sure that the user isn't already in our database, and we need to make sure that they're filling stuff out and that the email is an actual email field and all of that kind of stuff. What else can we do here? Let me check. Oh, you know, one last thing that we can do here is we can actually protect against cross-site request forgery while we're here. And cross-site request forgery is an attack that people use to basically force people to do things that they didn't know that they were doing. So there could be a link or something else that people click on, and when they do, it automatically fills out a form and hits save or something like that. And so what we can do to avoid that on our site is anytime we have a form, we can actually set a session up with some sort of key, and we can set that in the form. And so then when they submit the form, we can check to make sure that that matches. And so if that doesn't match, then they can't, and that means they didn't originate from this form, meaning it could have been a cross-site request forgery attack. So let's go ahead and let me see how much time we've spent on this. We're about up to 24 minutes, so I think we can do this pretty quick. Let's go ahead and look into that and see if we can knock that out. So what we're going to do is anytime we have any sort of posted value, what we're going to want to do here is we're going to do something from our session. So our session class, cross-site request forgery check. That's a static method that we're going to build on our session thing here. Now we got squigglies because that doesn't exist, so we need to make that exist. So let's go now and open up the session.php, and let me get it open here. And it's going to be a pretty simple function. So down here at the bottom here, let's add another public static method here, and we're going to call it CSRF, so cross-site request forgery check. Oops, check. And what we're going to do here is we're going to say request is equal to new request. So in order to do that though, we're going to have to import that. So up here we're going to say use core backslash request, just like that. And then what we're going to do is our check is going to be equal to this, or no, not this, just request get, and then we're going to get Csrf token. Okay, so that will get that from the request. And what we're going to do is we're going to do a check here. We're going to say if self exists. So if it exists in the session, Csrf token, okay, if that exists, and, oops, and we're going to get that Csrf token, and we're going to check if that equals our check. If all that's true, what we're going to do is we're just going to return true. And that means that the request is legitimate. They had a session set, and it matches the request that's sent to us in the request. Okay. Else, what we're going to do is we're going to do a router redirect, and we're going to send them to auth/bad token. Now we haven't created this redirect method yet either, and we will do that, but let's make sure this works here. Okay, so we have this session. The other thing that we want to do is we need to add the ability to, let's see, we're going to need the ability to actually add that session token. And let's do that in the form helpers file. So go ahead and open up the form helpers file. And let's down here at the bottom, let's add a public static function. And this is going to be a Csrf field. So cross-site request forgery field. And what we're going to do here is we're going to say a token is equal to session create Csrf token, which we haven't created that method yet, but that's going to generate the token. And then we're gonna take some HTML here. We're just gonna create an input with a type of hidden, and we're gonna set the value equal to our token here, and then we'll give this a name equal Csrf token, and then we'll go ahead and close that down. And then what we'll do here is return our HTML. So what this is going to do is it's going to generate the token with this method that we haven't created yet, which will be super simple though. And then we're creating just a hidden input, and we're going to store in the value of that hidden input the token value, along with the name of that being the Csrf token. And that, if we put it in our forms, is how this check is going to get that from the request. You see how this matches on the Csrf token? That matches. So let's then go and let's build the let's build that token generator up, and that was called public static function, and we'll call that create Csrf token. Okay, And the token, we're just going to use a hashing algorithm called an MD5, which is fine to use in this scenario. And then what we're going to do is we're going to do Csrf, and then we're going to concatenate onto that time like that. And then we're going to do self set Csrf token. So this sets the session up, and that will be token. And then we're just going to return this token. So this function right here, what it does is it creates a token here with this MD5. This MD5 is just a hash. Then it's going to set it in the session. So we're going to have this Csrf set in the session of this token, and then we return that, and then that gets set up with our form helpers in the input value here. When they submit the form like normal, then it's going to run this check, and from the request it's going to sanitize it, but it's going to get the Csrf token from the request, and it's going to check that against the session one that's stored in the session. And if that matches, if this all matches right here, then we're going to assume that it's a legitimate request. If not, then we're going to just redirect them to this auth bad token, which we haven't created yet, but that will just tell them, hey, you're doing naughty things, knock it off. You know what I mean? So basically we're ready to go. So all we need to do now is go back to the register, and anytime we have a form, we're just going to get in the habit of just doing a PHP echo, and we want to echo FH Csrf Field right at the top of this form. So now let's go back and save this, and let's refresh. Well, we don't need, let's just hit enter here, and let's go to inspect. And if we inspect this body and we go into the let's see, let's inspect this form. We'll go inside the poster here, and if you look inside the form, we should have a hidden input, and the value here is 172. So this is our value from that MD5. Now this is set up in our sessions. So if we were to look at our sessions, it will have a Csrf token session, and the value should match this. So if they try to mess around and say they send someone through our form without them knowing, or some sort of attack in that way, like for example, if I change this from an A to a B and I hit save, you can see that it tried to run that router redirect function, which we got an error because we haven't created that yet. But this is working correctly because that session token had been messed with. But let's go back now and let's not mess with it and hit save. And now it will have created a blank row in our database, but that was a legitimate request because our Csrf token, it worked the way that we expected it to work. Okay, now that we have that done, I think we'll leave it there for this video. We're in a good place where we are creating the user. We're protecting against cross-site request forgery using this cross-site request forgery check, and we're putting that in all of our forms just like that. And so we just have to remember to add this field, and then once wherever it's being posted or whatever, we need to check it and make sure it's good. If it's not good, it's going to go ahead and redirect them and won't let them continue the form from then on. But if it is good, it'll go ahead and do this, and it actually will set it up again. And the reason it'll set it up again is it's going to do this view render, and when it renders the view, it's going to render the field out again. And so let's see, one other thing. Yeah, and the field itself will generate a new token. So that's good to go. We are going to have a problem with this redirect. We will create that soon. But I think in the next video, what we're going to do is we are going to start with our form validation to make sure that they're sending back the correct information with their form. All right, with that, I will see you guys in the next video. I'm super excited about the next video because we're going to build our first abstract class, and you guys are going to see just how powerful object-oriented programming can be. So let's go ahead and save this up to Git. We're going to be, let's do save user and csrf protection. We'll do a git push, and then I'm going to check out main, and we'll do git merge v21, push that up. And that is it for this video, guys. Please comment, like, subscribe, let me know what you think. Peace out.